Tonight on Inside Story, they're predators and vicious killers.
If you love me, you will kill this woman.
Beautiful and tempting, but cold and pitiless.
Their sordid affair starts with public sex and ends with a gruesome murder.
This just doesn't happen.
Fatal females who prey on unsuspecting men.
Stay away from my husband.
They use sex and seduction to get what they want.
A sexual encounter. There's pictures.
And God help anyone
And I didn't even know that they shot him.
She's lying.
who tries to stop them. Hello, I'm Layla McKinnon. Welcome to Inside Story. In the movies, they're the femme fatale, sultry and seductive, luring hapless men to their doom. But these fatal females exist in real life too, where they can be just as seductive and even more ruthless. Alicia Loxley's been investigating just how ruthless.
Well, Layla, ruthless doesn't even begin to describe these women. Both planned their murders in a cold and calculating way. But it's what took place afterwards that shows just how manipulative both really are.
That's right, these women will stop at nothing, not even murder, to get what they want.
Jodi Arias was used to getting what she wanted. And Jodi Arias wanted Travis Alexander. But when she knew she couldn't have him, she made sure no one else could. It seemed an open and shut case, but Jodi Arias thought she could lie her way to freedom.
I wasn't there.
Can you be honest with me, Jodi?
I was not at Travis's house.
I'm not asking you if you remember, ma'am. I'm asking if you acknowledge that it would be you that did it, correct?
Yes.
It was the biggest murder case since the O.J. Simpson trial, all played out on American TV.
Jodi is a disgusting, ravaging, crazo murderer.
Jodi was a celebrity and she loved it. But as you'll see later, the jury and the public weren't seduced by her beguiling ways.
I would be shaking in my boots right now if I had to answer to God for such a heinous crime. But I'm very grateful that this is one thing that I will never have to answer to.
In Adelaide, a very different case. Michelle Burgess might not have enjoyed the celebrity of Jodi Arias, but she was equally manipulative, just as evil, and her trial no less bizarre.
It's probably unusual, not only in Adelaide, but anywhere. Especially for women to be involved in a murder like this. I mean, it just doesn't happen.
But it did. And mother of three, Carolyn Matthews, paid the ultimate price for being married to the man Michelle Burgess wanted.
She was absolutely fixated on getting rid of Carolyn.
Ambulance emergency.
Yeah, we need an ambulance, quick!
What's the address?
4 Bucket Avenue, Westlake Hill.
It was a phone call no 13-year-old should ever have to make.
What do you need the ambulance for?
Floor! Bleeding, quick! No pulse, he's dead! No pulse! There's no pulse!
It was a sight no child should ever have to see. Their mother, Carolyn Matthews, stabbed to death on the kitchen floor.
I definitely wasn't expecting to see, Mum laying on the floor with blood all over the walls and the floor and the ceiling, and it was something I will never forget.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. There was a lot of blood everywhere. Carolyn Matthews had been stabbed quite a number of times. There'd obviously been quite a violent confrontation, and you could see that.
Detective Sergeant Mick Standing and his colleagues from the Major Crime Investigation Branch don't know it yet, but they're about to be drawn into one of the most bizarre cases of their careers.
My immediate thought is, have we got somebody who's demented running around going to break into somebody else's home and strike again?
This is a story of lust, greed and obsession in Adelaide's suburbs. It begins with a manipulative sexual predator who meets her match in a vulgar, sleazy married man. Their sordid affair starts with public sex and ends with a gruesome murder.
This is one of the most unsophisticated contract killings investigators have ever seen. An evil plan hatched by one fatal female.
Carolyn Matthews was dead and the community was in shock.
To you, Kevin, Kenny, Shane, Daniel, we extend our deepest sympathy to you all.
The idea of her dying in such a terrible way was unthinkable.
Caroline was very much involved in the community, in her life-saving activities. She was very close to her family and her friends, and I never heard a bad word about Caroline Matthews. It was just full of praise for the lady.
Carolyn was a loving wife to Kevin and a devoted mother to Kenny, 16, Shane, 13 and Daniel, 12. They lived in the beach suburb of Westlake Shore, where their life revolved around Semaphore Surf Lifesaving Club.
It's a wonderful time, really. It's going camping with family all the time and being heavily involved in the Surf Lifesaving Club for our whole entire lives. We were born into it.
She was pretty dedicated to the three of you, wasn't she?
Absolutely.
Carolyn's day began before dawn, waking her sons and driving them to training.
Yeah, I don't know how she did that. But up at 4:30 and swimming from 5 till 7 and then straight back home, get changed and off to school, and then Mum would go off to her job and then come back home and feed us and take us off to swimming again, and so it was pretty full on.
But while Carolyn was the doting mum, it was their brash, larger-than-life father the Matthews boys worshipped.
Your idol when you're that old is your father, because that's your male role model if he's around, and he was my hero.
Kevin had everything going for him. He was the state manager of Bow Repairs. He was a former president of the Semaphore Surf Lifesaving Club, where he was still a respected member. His wife had a business. They had a nice home in a middle-class suburb.
It all seemed like the ideal life for Carolyn and Kevin. But in the weeks before Carolyn's death, she'd been extremely troubled. And she made a series of desperate phone calls that may well have sealed her fate.
When you look at it, you would have said what they're planning to do is just not realistic. They're not going to get away with it. This murder can't happen. And yet it did.
Coming up,
She really is evil.
the ugly truth and the twisted plot to kill Carolyn Matthews.
No Paul!
Kevin Matthews was an arrogant, obnoxious man, and certainly not the best husband in the world.
He was an extremely heavy drinker. He could certainly drink a bottle of scotch in an evening. That wasn't a problem for him.
Author and journalist Derek Pedley spent 5 years writing a book about this tragedy.
Kevin was clearly a man with a wandering eye.
He was a real sexual deviant, wasn't he?
I think he was, yes. Kevin had other activities of a sexual nature that may not have been legal.
Carolyn knew nothing about her husband's secret life until a woman named Michelle Burgess turned up on the scene. She was the wife of one of Kevin's employees at Bow Repairs, store manager Darren Burgess.
Around the middle of 2000, Kevin and Michelle started texting each other and getting flirtatious on the phone.
Michelle was a serial cheat with a voracious sexual appetite.
And then in a matter of months, they were arm in arm at work parties, and Kevin was introducing Michelle as his best friend at his 40th birthday party, much to the chagrin of his wife.
Kevin and Michelle couldn't get enough of each other. They were seen having long lunches at the Hampstead Hotel and having daytime sex at Roy Amer Reserve and Pioneer Park. They also spent hours and hours in hotel rooms. But Kevin Matthews wasn't the only person at Bow Repairs to fall prey to Michelle's predatory ways.
She also had an affair with another one of his colleagues at Bow Repairs by the name of Darren Bland, who was quite good friends with Darren Burgess. Darren Burgess is not a stupid man. He knew what was going on. He stayed in this marriage because he loved his children and still does.
So who is Michelle Burgess? Well, she was born Michelle Goldup, the youngest of 5 children, and indulged by her parents. She met Darren Burgess, who would later become her husband, when she was only 15 and still at school. Although she rarely attended, and by the time she was in year 10, she had dropped out. Michelle wasn't really interested in having any female friends, and her one and only job was as a checkout operator at Big W. By the time she was 18, Michelle was pregnant, and she hasn't worked since.
What sort of mother was Michelle Burgess?
Michelle was a terrible mother because she was neglecting her children on a regular basis.
A bad mother and an even worse wife. Darren Burgess had put up with Michelle's infidelities, but even the most tolerant man will reach his breaking point. In January 2001, Darren found Michelle's phone bills. In just 2 months, his wife had made almost $3,000 worth of calls and texts to his boss at Bow Repairs, Kevin Matthews. Darren walked out of their Evanston Park home, leaving Michelle and their 2 young children. Carolyn Matthews also knew about her husband's affair with Michelle, but she wasn't letting him go without a fight.
Stay away from my husband!
Michelle didn't take kindly to these phone calls. In fact, she was furious. Now she was even more determined to have a life with Kevin. And Michelle and Kevin began plotting their evil conspiracy.
Somehow there's been pillow talk where they've decided mutually that if both of them were to get rid of their respective partners, their lives would be a lot easier. And I'm sure Kevin somewhere along the way mentioned that he had a $100,000 life insurance policy on his wife.
Why didn't he just leave his wife, do you think? Why not just leave?
I don't think he ever had any intentions of leaving her. I don't think he ever had intentions of going and being tied up permanently with Michelle Burgess. But she pushed him into a corner.
It was time to find a hitman. So oddly, Michelle asked one of the school mums if she knew anyone who could help out.
Kathy Cowd said that her brother, David Key, had just been released from prison and that he was looking for some work, a bit of labouring work, a bit of gardening work, so this was a bit of a step up. David says he's interested and says he'd like to meet Michelle, so he turns up after school one day, sitting in his car, pulling cones of marijuana, trying to look inconspicuous, as he later describes to the police.
Michelle gave David Key 2 hastily cobbled together contracts for the hits. A deal was made, $50,000 to kill Carolyn Matthews and Michelle's estranged husband, Darren. True to form, within days, Michelle was engaged in a steamy affair with her newly hired hitman, David Key.
Kevin withdraws $1,500 from his savings account, and that money is then handed over to Key as a down payment, which he is then supposed to go and buy himself a gun with.
He did make inquiries about a gun.
Hey mate, how's it going?
But blew the $1,500 on alcohol, dope, speed and ecstasy, and remained gunless. He even showed at least half a dozen people the murder contracts.
Despite the warning signs of having a hitman whose first impulse is to spend his money on drugs, they decide that they're going to stick with David Key as their hitman. And over the course of June and July 2001, this murder conspiracy really starts to take shape.
This is where the murder plot was finalised. Just after 5 o'clock on the 12th of July 2001, Michelle and David arrived here at Kevin's work, Bow Repairs, Port Adelaide. Kevin and Michelle then argued for about 15 minutes before Michelle called David over and declared it's got to be done tonight. They'd arranged for Kevin to go and pick up his 3 sons and take them to the video store, leaving Carolyn alone in the house and creating a window of opportunity to kill her.
I got the call on the phone at home, and Dad said, you know, basically grab your brothers and come out the front, and I'll be home in a few minutes, and we'll jump in the car and go down to the video store. I was like, oh, yep, no worries, cool. And so grabbed my brothers and went out the front and said goodbye to Mum, sort of thing. And she was sitting on the computer, and that was the last time I saw her. So she was sitting on the computer doing invoicing for work, and then we walked out the front.
Meanwhile, Michelle and hitman David Key had driven to Nambucca Avenue, Westlake Shore. As soon as Kevin and the boys left, they approached the house.
Carolyn Matthews has just opened the front door and is taking the recycling out. The timing was very unfortunate. Perhaps if she'd been behind a closed door, things may have panned out differently, but she was at the front of her house, a few steps from the front door, when she's suddenly confronted by the woman that she knows is sleeping with her husband, and a bald, very angry-looking man. He waves the murder contract around and says, "Is this you?" She confirms that it is, and then Michelle punches her in the face, and she's knocked back through the threshold of her front door, and they then bundle her inside. Michelle goes into the kitchen and starts rifling around in drawers, finds herself a Wiltshire kitchen knife, and then comes back out, hands the knife to David Key and says, "Do it. If you love me, you will kill this woman. You will do it right now." And they push her into her tiny kitchen where she's cornered with no way out, and David Key loses the plot completely and proceeds to unleash this frenzied attack.
And what were her final moments like, do you think? You saw?
Horrendous. She would have been lying on that floor, dying and going through her mind, why has this happened to me? I think she asked the question and it came out in evidence. Why are you doing this? What have I done?
Then Kevin Matthews received a call from Michelle telling him the job was done. So he drove his boys home.
Kevin was moving a bit slowly. He didn't seem to want to go in first, and I think he had decided that he was going to let his boys find whatever was inside, and I think that remains the most cowardly and disgraceful moment in this case, that he let his boys find their mother like that.
And I've headed directly to the lounge room, and I'm sussing out the videos we got, and then Dad and Daniel and Kenny have headed to the kitchen sort of area, and the next thing I hear is just like an oh God, like when I heard that, I sort of come running to the kitchen.
What's happened there? Her wrist is slashed. Okay, is there a lot of bleeding? Yes, there is. Hurry up! Get him now! No pulse!
The amount of blood, like, you just can't comprehend how much blood's in a human body until it's not in them anymore. It's extremely disturbing, to say the least.
Kevin Matthews knew. That's why he sent the boys in. He wasn't going to go out and find it.
How do you describe a man who does that?
You don't. He's not a man. He's not a man at all.
How can you comprehend something like that, you know? It's disgusting.
What about Michelle's reaction straight after the crime?
Michelle started cackling, according to David Key. She said, "You stupid you're under the thumb now." And she knew that at the moment that he started raining blows down on Carolyn, that she could do whatever she wanted with David Key, because she was now a witness to murder.
What does that say about her, that she was laughing after taking someone else's life?
I think evil is the only way you can describe that. She really is evil.
Coming up next, the vital clue.
He was a cooked goose.
And Kevin Matthews still besotted by the murderous Michelle.
She's innocent.
Carolyn Matthews' murder was big news. It was a seemingly motiveless crime. But the killer had left a vital clue at the murder scene, a bloody boot print on the kitchen floor. And police soon learned about the illicit affair between Carolyn's husband, Kevin, and Michelle Burgess. Hitman David Key was also on their radar because of his relationship with Michelle.
I think it became fairly apparent to them within probably 3 weeks that the police were not only focusing on them, that they believed they were suspects.
2 weeks after the murder, hitman David Key was arrested for driving like a maniac and leading police on a high-speed chase.
Initially, they just arrested him for parole violations, but when they searched his wallet, they found a copy of the Darren Burgess murder contract, which they took a photocopy of. At the time, of course, they couldn't prove what it was. It didn't explicitly have murder contract written at the top, but they took a copy for later, and that became valuable evidence.
Just as damning, he was still wearing the incriminating boots he had on at the murder scene.
He was a cooked goose. He knew that. I mean, how was he ever going to explain Carolyn Matthews' blood on his boots like they were? Because he was wearing them when I took them off his feet. That surprised him.
He knew.
He knew, yeah. And he knew that I knew. But some of these blokes aren't as good as I think they are.
Police carried out extensive forensic tests on Key's boots, and he was charged with Carolyn's murder.
David Key's the killer that all police want to fall into their lap. I think he presented them on a silver platter all the evidence that they needed to prove that he was there on that day and guilty of Carolyn's murder.
Hey, what have you heard?
Meanwhile, Michelle was getting panicky.
And she's plotting and talking with other people about finding out who dobbed David Key into the cops so she'd kill him herself, I think were the words she used.
One of the passengers in David Key's car when he was arrested was his mate Jason Colenso. As soon as David was locked up, Jason became yet another conquest for Michelle.
Jason decided he would become Michelle's white knight. For some reason, every man who crossed her path in this 6-month period seemed to become besotted with her.
Michelle's new lover, Jason, even threatened Michelle's ex-husband, Darren, trying to stop him from testifying against her. But it was too little too late, and Michelle Burgess was the second person to be charged with the murder of Carolyn Matthews.
We arrested Michelle, then we went and told Kevin, and he tells the press in Adelaide that we've arrested the wrong person. The minute he said that, I knew straight away that irrespective of what the end result was, he was as guilty as sin.
Like, how can you go support your wife's murderer? You know, just, yeah, it's just terrible, despicable.
Just when you thought Kevin Matthews' behaviour couldn't get any crazier, it did. He turned up to court for Michelle Burgess's first appearance. By his side was Michelle's latest lover, Jason Colenso. Once inside the court, the pair competed for Michelle's attention, acting like lovesick teenagers, making hand gestures and mouthing words. But the strangest thing of all was the message that Kevin had written inside his hat that he needed Michelle to see so that she wouldn't doubt his commitment. The word? Forever.
So he goes outside, stalks off down the street with his hat planted on his head, with every TV camera and newspaper camera in the city trained on him.
Are you happy that the investigation's progressing the way it should be? She's innocent.
Sorry, do you believe they're innocent?
Yeah, both of them are.
In all of your years of policing, had you seen behaviour like it?
I've never seen the husband of a victim go to court to support the person we'd charged. Never seen anybody do that.
What about you, sir? You're saying she's innocent?
The behaviour of the individuals in this case is a standout in my mind. Absolutely. Quite bizarre.
With Michelle Burgess and hitman David Key in custody, police went after their third man. The case against Kevin was relying on hours of painstaking surveillance. 8 weeks after Carolyn's murder, Kevin was arrested. Before long, this improbable trio, inextricably linked by lust and greed, were facing the magistrate.
David Key had been wavering early on. He didn't know whether to plead guilty or not guilty. Finally came to his senses and realised that a guilty plea was the only thing that was going to be of any benefit to him.
He was smart enough to work out that he'd been used, was going to get nothing from it, and it was time for him to do the best he could for himself.
Kevin obviously was not very happy. When they were standing together in the dock, Kevin lunged at Key and was calling him a dog and certainly indicating he wanted to hurt him.
Vital evidence that did not make it to court was Carolyn Matthews' murder contract. Hitman David Key found an unconventional way to dispose of it.
He's made himself a nice, tasty murder contract sandwich.
He testified to that in court.
He did, yes. The lawyer was trying to get him to admit that he was being facetious, and Key was saying, well, no, it was a nice sandwich. It was tasty, actually. I ate it all.
All three received life sentences for the murder of Carolyn Matthews. David Key's guilty plea earned him a 20-year non-parole period, while Michelle Burgess and Kevin Matthews both pleaded not guilty and received 30 years non-parole.
It is a relief that you get the right verdict. In some sense, it's a sort of a hollow victory because even though you've got a conviction, you've still got people that are dealing with grief for the rest of their lives, basically. And a woman of the calibre of Caroline Matthews is no longer with us.
Still to come on Inside Story. She's blonde and beautiful. He's a pious Mormon boy.
She was extremely obsessed with him.
The torrid affair that ends in a bloodbath.
If I can blade,
He's dead.
Jodi Arias is the classic femme fatale, a stunning blonde, a cunning manipulator, always on the lookout for the main chance. A woman prepared to seduce, cheat and eventually kill in a fit of terrible vengeance.
When you first meet her, Jodi Arias appears to be sweet and softly spoken, a nice girl who's very beautiful. That's what first struck Travis Alexander when he met Jodi in Las Vegas at an insurance convention.
Aside from the physical chemistry that was already there seemed to be a lot of emotional chemistry right off the bat as well.
Travis was giving a motivational speech, and right from the start, Jodi latched onto him.
From the very beginning, Travis and Jodi were in constant communication. They talked every day. They exchanged thousands of emails and text messages.
Travis, a Mormon, lived in Arizona, and Jodi lived 5 hours away in California. But Jodi was determined to take the relationship to the next level. So within weeks of them meeting, she asked Travis to baptise her into the Mormon faith.
She was a chameleon. She read people really well, and she would adapt to whatever situation she was in. She would reflect back to you whatever it was that you wanted to hear.
Jodi was smitten with Travis, and at every opportunity they would meet up, blatantly disregarding the strict Mormon rule of no sex before marriage.
Right away, Travis's friends were concerned. It was clear that she liked him a lot more than he liked her. Travis wanted a normal life. Jodi wanted to be with him more than anything. It was an extremely unhealthy bond that they shared.
Travis enjoyed the sex, he was hooked on it. And at 30 years of age, he was experiencing things he'd never known. But he didn't consider Jodi wife material.
Jodi became Travis's drug. He was able to get something from her that he couldn't get anywhere else with the good, wholesome Mormon girls that he typically dated here in Arizona.
But Travis made no secret of the fact he was looking for a wife, a nice girl. He secretly began pursuing other women.
Jodi went through his phone and discovered these flirty messages to other women and decided to end the relationship at that point. And at the same time, Travis was also looking to end the relationship.
I think the way he put it was, we're going to be friends, but we both agreed that it's time to start seeing other people.
But in a strange move, 3 weeks after their breakup, Jodi moved to Travis's hometown of Mesa, Arizona. They were no longer dating, but Jodi became a regular late-night visitor, Travis's dirty little secret.
Clearly, Jodi enjoyed the sexual life with Travis, but it must have been tormenting for her. In her diary, she writes that she loves Travis so fully and completely that she doesn't know any other way to be. He was just her entire focus. She was extremely obsessed with him.
But that obsession would turn deadly. While Jodi pretended she was happy with this casual arrangement, in reality she was seething with jealous rage. She simply could not cope with Travis seeing other women. She began stalking him, and worse.
She slashed his tires, she broke into his email account, she hacked his Facebook page, she broke into his house and stole his journals. It was extremely crazy stalking behavior.
Broke and without a job, Jodie eventually moved back to California in April 2008, but maintained contact with Travis, engaging in hot and heavy late-night calls.
I really, really, really want to suck your dick right now. So bad.
Then in early June, she heads off on a road trip to see friends in Utah. But on the way, she takes a massive detour to Arizona to surprise Travis.
I think Jodie could have started planning this murder before she even moved away from Arizona, months and months before he was killed.
On June 4, the couple spend a passionate afternoon together. Both keen photographers, they capture their most intimate moments on Travis's new camera. About 1 minute after this picture was taken, and without any warning, Jodie explodes.
Seconds after taking that last photo, Jodie drops the camera. She takes the knife and she plunges it into his heart. The knife wound would have killed him, but she continues the slaughter, slitting his throat from ear to ear. In all, Travis was stabbed over 29 times. But it doesn't end there. Then Jodie took a gun and shot him in the head.
It's 5 days before Travis is discovered by worried friends.
A friend of ours is dead in his bedroom. We hadn't heard from him for a while. We think he's dead. There's lots of blood.
He's dead. He's in his bedroom.
Okay.
In the shower.
Has he been threatened by anyone recently? Yes, he has. He has an ex-girlfriend that's been bothering him and following him and slashing tires and things like that. Her name is Jodie.
But Jodie has an alibi. The first of 3 different stories, all outlandish lies. She tells lead investigator, Detective Esteban Flores, she hasn't been to Arizona for more than a month. She claims she was visiting her friend in Utah when the murder happened.
What if I could show you proof you were there?
I wasn't there.
You can be honest with me, Jodie.
I was not at Travis's house. Was not.
Originally, Jodie tells the police that she was nowhere near Arizona and had nothing to do with the crime.
You guys had a sexual encounter, which there's pictures.
Are you sure those pictures aren't from another time?
Positive. Absolutely positive.
Investigators are able to put Jodie at the crime scene, thanks to a bloody handprint, hair, and Travis's camera found in his washing machine.
They find this camera in the washing machine and they have no idea what it would be doing there. They had been run through the machine and had water damage, but they were able to retrieve the memory card inside.
Jodie deleted the photos, but forensic experts were able to restore some damning images. Enough evidence to charge Jodi Arias with the murder of Travis Alexander.
Why would they do that?
After spending a night in jail, Jodie changes her story. And at this time, she says that she knows who killed Travis, but it wasn't her. Jodie says that on the last day of Travis's life, a man and a woman break into the house and stab and shoot Travis in front of her, and she has no idea what to do.
They didn't discuss much. They just argued.
About what?
About whether or not to kill me.
For what reason?
Because I'm a witness.
A witness of what?
Him. Of Travis.
Of Travis's murder.
The intruders threaten to kill Jodie, but she escapes narrowly with her life, and she takes her purse.
Jodie's second version of events is as unconvincing as her first story. But Jodie's a narcissist and pathological liar, and has supreme confidence in her ability to manipulate people.
You know, I need to be honest, and the evidence is very compelling, but none of it proves that I committed a murder.
While awaiting trial, she appears on American television several times to put forward her version of events.
I witnessed Travis being attacked by 2 other individuals.
Who?
I don't know who they were. I couldn't pick them out in a police lineup.
Then she makes this bold prediction.
No jury is going to convict me.
Why not?
Because I'm innocent, and you can mark my words on that one.
Coming up next, sex, jealousy and murder. The gripping courtroom drama.
She's lying. She's making it all up. And she staged her defense by lies.
The trial of Jodi Arias was a national media event, played out in all its sordid detail. Sex, murder, jealousy, intrigue. This was one blockbuster courtroom drama. And Jodi, never shy of attention, got into character for her starring role on the stand for a marathon 18 days. She transformed herself from blonde seductress to meek, downtrodden victim. She also changed her story once again.
Did you kill Travis Alexander on June 4th, 2008?
Yes, I did.
Why?
The simple answer is that he attacked me, and I defended myself.
Finally, in court, Jodi reveals yet another story. She says that she killed Travis, but it was in self-defense.
According to Jodi, it was kill or be killed. She claimed he flew into a rage when she dropped his new camera.
I'm taking pictures of him. We were trying out different poses. And when I went to delete the photos, as I moved the camera, it slipped out of my hand.
So what happens after you drop the camera?
Travis flipped out and he stepped out of the shower and he lifted me up and he body slammed me again on the tile. And I remembered where he kept a gun.
Jodi then claims to have reached for a .25 caliber handgun she said Travis kept on the shelf. The same type of gun stolen from Jodi's grandparents' home a week before the murder.
So I grabbed it. He was chasing me. I turned around and we were in the middle of the bathroom. I pointed it at him with both of my hands. I thought that would stop him, but he just kept running. I didn't even think I was holding the trigger. I just was pointing it at him. And I didn't even know that I shot him. It just went off. And after I broke away from him, he said, "F***, kill you, bitch."
But that didn't account for the 29 stab wounds and Travis's near decapitation.
Jodi said she had no memory stabbing him 29 times and that the entire thing was an accident.
You would acknowledge, ma'am, that Mr. Alexander was stabbed. You would acknowledge that, right?
Yes.
And you would acknowledge that that stabbing was with the knife, right?
I don't remember. I don't know.
Prosecutor Juan Martinez fought hard, earning himself the nickname Bulldog. But Jodi's defence team was also aggressive. Travis's family seethed as they listened to the defence paint their brother as an abusive, controlling partner.
Why didn't you call the police?
I would have never called the police on Travis.
There was no evidence of any sort of abuse. It was all Jodi's story, and her story had changed so many times that at that point no one believed her.
But it was the couple's love life that really had everyone riveted. There were even claims Travis was a sexual deviant.
To back up her claims in court, there's a sex tape played of her and Travis weeks before he died, and it's very sexually explicit.
Sounds like it was a 12-year-old girl having her first orgasm.
Sounds like what?
12-year-old girl having her first orgasm.
And it was this obsession with recording their intimate moments that ultimately led to Jodi Arias' downfall. Travis's new camera, the one they used to take shots of their final fatal lovemaking session, also captured the vital evidence that would convict Jodi.
These are accidental photographs. These are photographs that the killer did not want taken.
Those photographs show not only the moment of Travis's death, but also reveal Jodi's tracksuit pants beside the body.
The camera falls from her hands and hits the ground, and as it does, it snaps a photo. Then while she's committing the crime, she steps on the camera and snaps another photo of him lying on the shower floor, blood dripping down his neck. The timestamps on these pictures just blow Jodi's stories away. Here they have evidence that Jodi is clearly the murderer.
As the summing up began, it wasn't looking good for Jodi Arias.
She's lying. She's making it all up. And she staged her defense by lies.
Ladies and gentlemen, I understand you have reached a verdict.
Jodi's lies were finally about to catch up with her.
We, the jury, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty.
Pandemonium broke out as news of the verdict was announced, and naturally, Jodi fronted the cameras.
I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
So you're saying you actually prefer getting the death penalty to being in prison for life?
Coming up,
It's bizarre, but it didn't surprise me.
Michelle Burgess up to her old tricks again.
You know, she's a pig.
Two manipulative, evil women.
Because I'm innocent, and you can mark my words on that one.
Two terrible crimes.
Blood all over the walls and the floor and the ceiling, and something I'll never forget.
Jodi Arias and Michelle Burgess are now in prison for life.
We, the jury, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty.
But these stories are far from over for both women.
Long lay the world in sin and error pining.
Jodi is still awaiting news on whether she will face the death penalty for murdering Travis Alexander. But inside, she's expressing herself creatively, even winning a Christmas singing competition.
Oh, hear the angel voices.
And in true form, Jodi has made another dramatic about-face. She now says her family has convinced her to fight the death penalty.
If I go against what they say, it's just going to cause so much pain. So much more pain.
In Adelaide, our local femme fatale, Michelle Burgess, is serving a life sentence for killing Carolyn Matthews. This is where Michelle Burgess is now, but it hasn't put an end to her predatory ways, earning her the nickname the Black Widow. She's now targeting male prison officers, and one even left his wife and children for her. As a consequence, male prison officers are never allowed to be alone with Michelle Burgess. Could you believe when you heard that she was getting involved with prison officers?
I thought once again it's bizarre, but it didn't surprise me. I really thought it was only a matter of time before she would do something like that.
Michelle Burgess was obviously a very key figure in this. How much thought have you given to her, and how unfortunate that your father and her paths crossed?
To be quite honest, I don't think about it. I haven't thought about her. Same as Kevin. I don't really care. It's, you know, she's a pig.
The last contact Shane had with his father, Kevin, was when he was 18 and changed his name from Matthews to his mother's maiden name, Tidswell.
I vividly remember on the form that there was a section as to the reason of why you changed your name, and I didn't know what to write on there, so I just wrote, well, my father murdered my mother. Up until then, my father, much to my disgust, was still sending me birthday cards and everything every year. So I took a copy of the birth certificate, put it back in the birthday card, and sent it back to him. And I wrote on there, "You've been erased."
How does it feel to have created your own immediate family again after it was really torn away from you?
Oh, it's brilliant. I can't having child and having such a loving, amazing partner is just she's helped me so much as well. And having little Jade, she's just she's amazing. So it's I love them both so much. Life's fantastic now. I love my two girls, and life's only getting better.
David Key, Kevin Matthews and Michelle Burgess are all serving life sentences for murder. With good behaviour, David Key may be eligible for parole in 2021. Neither Kevin nor Michelle will be eligible for parole until 2031 at the earliest. By then, Michelle will be 58 years old.
Well, before we go tonight, Joe Ricks and Chris Sotirio had one thing in common. Someone very close to them wanted them dead, very dead.
It was a funny thing to face up to. This is how you're going to die.
It was a pre-planned attack.
Get off it! We've called the police!
She wanted her husband dead. It was full on.
Kill the wrong
That's next week's Inside Story. I'm Layla McKinnon. I hope you can join us then.